Jamie is not in the room, but I thank him for coordinating all the arrangements. We're representing, myself and Kyle and Laura are involved in the Communications and Government Relations Committee for the American Red Cross of Central Pennsylvania. And I feel very honored to be part of this. And we had a nice meeting a couple of months ago with Sherry Capello and the fire chief and the police chief. So today is just to get acquainted with the people who are responsible for Red Cross today, and they will share information about what goes on and how Lebanon County can benefit from the things that the Red Cross does. Kyle is our committee chair. He also, I'm sure you probably know, is the general manager of Channel 8 in Lancaster. And Laura Hughs is the executive director of American Red Cross. So she's the full-time leader of the pack, so to speak. Yeah? So I'm going to turn it over to Kyle to get us going.
Well, we appreciate your time and putting us on the agenda today. So I've been on the board of directors for the Red Cross here for just about 2 years now, and we hired Laura just about a year ago. She's about coming up on her year anniversary, and we had set out that we needed to do a reintroduction of ourselves to the community, particularly in the Communications and Government Relations Committee, that we were going to spend some time and just do let's get reacquainted and give Laura an opportunity to come around and talk about the work that we're doing in the community already. Lebanon County is fortunate that you have our #1 volunteer, the Levan family here in town. So we are blessed to have them, to count them among our own. And I wanted just to have each of you have the opportunity to meet Laura and hear a little bit about the work that she's been doing in her first year with the Red Cross.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. Delighted to be here. I'm a Lebanon County resident, Palmyra, born and raised. Took a brief, I guess I say, extended vacation in Washington, D.C. for about 8 years, and then I came back to town. So, like I said, proud Lebanon County resident my whole life. Took this role a year ago, and I was delighted to learn more about this organization as I got acclimated to my role, and I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity to kind of share some of the work that we do as on a broad base, and then kind of talk about what our impact has been in Lebanon County and what we're looking to do in Lebanon County this coming year, which may be of particular interest to you. How many of you know of us for our blood collection services? The Red Cross, they collect blood. How many know about our hurricane relief efforts nationwide, like Hurricane Harvey, Katrina? A lot of individuals, when I kind of ask these questions in large group settings, they say, how many of you know our Service to the Armed Force division? And not many people do know. So what that tells me is I need to be going out and educating the community on what we do. And a lot of my effort in this past year has been particularly outreach. Kind of traveling to the Rotaries. We did Myerstown Elko Rotary in the fall. I just spoke at the Lebanon DAR not 3 weeks ago. Just about the full spectrum of what we do. A lot of our focus here, specifically in Lebanon County, is in our disaster cycle services line, and is also in our Service to the Armed Forces line of service as well. Not to diminish the impact that our biomed division has on this region and how many blood units we collect here, but those are the two I really want to highlight today, so you guys have an understanding of what we do and why we do it, and then where we're going in the future. I guess kind of backing up a little bit about our disaster cycle services division, we have kind of 3 pillars that we work towards. It's prepare, it's respond, and it's recover. And a lot of people think about us in that respond category. You see the Red Cross out there when a hurricane hits, or when there's the wildfires out in California, and you see the text 777 to Red Cross 1, or whatever that looks like. And we do a wonderful job at that. But there's a lot that happens here on the home front that we respond to as well. So just in 2019 alone, we impacted 89 individuals who were displaced from a home fire, flood, or other emergency situation, and we were successful in distributing over $25,000 in financial assistance to those clients.
And that's here in Lebanon County alone.
That's here in Lebanon County alone. What that looks like is if there's a house fire, we are called and we are dispatched to attend this, to go to the scene. While, the police or the fire department is focused on the situation, we focus on the individual. And making sure that they have what they need, that they are safe, that they have any resources they need to be able to get on their feet or stay on their feet. Studies show that, over 60% of the clients we serve nationwide in 2019 cannot sustain a disaster that would put them out of $500 or more and be able to get back on their feet. That's kind of that gap that Red Cross fills to make sure that they're able to sustain their lifestyle carrying through a major disaster. So we do distribute funds directly to the client in the form of we call it a client assistance card. It's money that is preloaded on almost a debit card that we distribute to the client to be able to spend on items they may have lost. It could be, a meal with the family. It could be the hotel stay for a couple nights. It could be, some clothing. It could be school supplies. Whatever they feel like they could spend the money on to stay on their feet for the next couple days, we make sure we do. We additionally will provide services for mental health services, and spiritual care on site as well. We have a team of volunteers who respond and provide those resources. All of our response efforts are volunteer-led. Kyle alluded to the Lebanon family, and Paul and Mary Ann kind of lead the charge of our Red Cross efforts here in Lebanon County. But everything is volunteer-driven. We wouldn't be able to do any of our work without our volunteers on site, on the ground. So that's kind of that respond piece that we do here locally. And like I said, we do our best to make sure that everyone has what they need. We focus on the individual. We meet them on potentially the worst day of their lives. And we want to make sure that they are treated with dignity and that humanitarian spirit. When I talk about preparing, we do a lot of work in that preparedness space. We have a campaign, it's a national campaign started in 2014 called Sound the Alarm. It's where we go into different communities and we install free smoke alarms in their homes. Oftentimes, the majority of households, if they have smoke alarms at all, they're not working because oftentimes people will grab the batteries out of them and use them for something else. I've heard of way too many fatalities because they pulled the batteries out of their smoke alarm and those were not functioning. So we see that as a problem, and we go into homes and we install working smoke alarms that have a built-in 10-year battery so that they can be good for 10 total years. This year in April or May, we're meeting with Myerstown, actually tomorrow. We are going to be installing in Myerstown. Our goal for that is 200 smoke alarms. As Jack alluded to, in talking to the fire commissioner here in Lebanon City, we've identified that there is also a need here in the city. And we're looking into doing another installation event or potentially supplying the fire department with those smoke alarms to make sure that we can make sure we get them in the homes. So that was one of the needs that we talked about at the city level that we are working to address. Also in the preparedness space, we like to educate. So of course we'll go in and we'll install those smoke alarms, but we value the education of preparedness in emergency situations as well. So we have a program called Pillowcase, and you think, well, that's kind of a weird, funny name. It's teaching emergency preparedness and evacuation techniques to students ages 3rd to 5th grade. It's called Pillowcase because after Katrina hit, one of our volunteers in the shelter observed people flooding the shelter with pillowcases full of items. And that's kind of how that concept for the program was born. We teach students what it means to evacuate, what is a safe way to evacuate, how do you work on emergency preparedness plans, and then they're presented with a workbook with coloring pages and information, and then a physical pillowcase that has items listed on it where they can put in their pillowcase to be prepared to evacuate in an emergency. It could be anything from fire, flood, gas leak. We can teach them a full curriculum on that. It's a complimentary service that we provide to school districts. There's no fee, there's no cost associated. It's something that we find is valuable in educating youth, because when you educate youth, they take it home and they talk about it with mom and dad, aunt, uncle, grandma, whoever is their caretaker in the household. We presented in Ebenezer last spring. I was on site for that. We did 2 sessions of 30 students each. It was probably one of the highlights of my spring, was being at that school and watching that program take off. The students were engaged. Some of their answers were really funny. So it was really a great opportunity to observe, you know, this program in action and see the excitement on their faces. We get to keep a pillowcase with Mickey and Minnie and color it. So it was really good to see their takeaways. You know, again, volunteer-led program. We have youth preparedness lead volunteers that go into these schools and deliver these programs. Recently, I was able to present at the Lebanon Safe Schools Committee on these complementary programs and the value they can provide to school districts, and we are looking at presenting in additional schools here in 2020 based on that presentation that we were able to deliver at the school district. So that's a program that we're very passionate about and very much looking to get into the school districts here in Lebanon County. You know, like I said, in the preparedness space, we love to partner with fire departments and EMAs. So we were very involved in Fire Prevention Week here in October with Lebanon. I know that we set up a tabling event and we brought our emergency response vehicle out and we were able to participate in that event. So I'm going to pause here for a minute because I kind of threw a lot of information at you regarding just our preparedness and our response. Does anybody have any questions for me, Kyle, or Jack?
No, I think you've done a good job. It's nice to put a new face here. We dealt with Dawn Vitez for so many years. And then there was another lady before you, but I guess she's gone.
Jerry.
Probably
Yeah.
Jerry.
Jerry.
Jerry, thank you.
Yeah, well, our motivation for us to meet today is that you do have a face and a
Yes.
contact, Laura particularly, to reach out to for anything that you think the Red Cross can help Lebanon County with.
And hopefully
I get-
you see how she's really re-energized the Red Cross here.
Yes.
And what's nice for the board member is to watch Laura's attention to all of our communities that we're serving. So, and we are wide open for feedback. If you see areas of opportunity where you think that we could be paying some attention, that you see there's a need, please, we are ears open to hearing those things.
Well, I guess the one thing I'm looking for is a contact for the public if they need your services. Can you say something about that?
For the Red Cross.
Right, if people had need for the Red Cross, how they would get in touch with us.
If they're in an emergency situation or just in general circumstances.
You can take the lead.
I'm kind of that external relations person for the Red Cross. I'm I guess the voice of the Red Cross when in a broader spectrum. We do have a disaster program manager that handles just our disaster cycle services program. So should there be an emergency or something like that, then that would be your point of contact. I do have my card here and I'm happy to distribute this to each of you should there be any specific questions.
Well, my question
I'm sorry, go ahead.
is for the people who are watching live, how would they
Oh.
contact someone? Because is there a website or a
Yes.
phone number?
Thank you.
Yes.
1-800 Red Cross, and if you type in our zip code, it'll take you to our Central Pennsylvania chapter. Our headquarters is in Harrisburg, but we cover Lebanon, Lancaster, Dauphin counties. That's the Central Pennsylvania chapter. So there's a phone number there that they can call to ask any questions if they are in need of any kind of services, that we have a receptionist on hand to answer and address any of those questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And then just for you as commissioners, I would be your point of contact for anything, reactive. Should there be an incident where you need to have a better understanding of what the Red Cross is doing, where you don't want to go through a call center, you don't want to call an 800 number or visit a website, I would be your direct access to provide any information you need in real time. So when I distribute my card here, that is what my offer is to you. Call me anytime should you need any clarification on any of our response.
And based on experience, if you have to reach Laura, she's very responsive.
I missed a 3 a.m. call once, and I'm still kicking myself over it. I said the one day I left my phone downstairs.
Excuse me, are you going to talk about blood at all?
I can talk about blood.
If you're not, I have a question, but if you have something that you want to present.
No, please.
I'm just a little confused about some of the other entity that comes to Lebanon to, with their mobile units and so on. I go to the Friendship Fire Hall. They have that's my place to give blood on a regular basis. But I didn't know what's the other name of the
Probably a Central Penn Blood
Central
Bank.
Penn, yeah. For the public's, it's a little confusing to me as a layperson. What's the difference, or why are there two, and that kind of thing?
So the Red Cross collects 40% of the nation's blood, but there are other agencies that also do great work in collecting blood as well. So to answer your question in short term, there's nothing different that the Central Penn Blood Bank does in terms of collection that we don't do. We're just two entities that do collect blood.
Do you both supply hospitals?
We both supply to hospitals.
Okay. That's-
Absolutely. The Red Cross is the only agency that can transport blood over state lines. So that's, I think, sometimes a benefit. So, for example, when Dorian was preparing to hit, which we thought was Florida, not only were we nationally positioning relief supplies down there, but we were also positioning blood products in those affected areas to help with any shortfalls that they would have received. So I think that's a benefit to the Red Cross blood collection services.
So that means that if they're in Florida and they were told to evacuate and they come to Pennsylvania, they can still get blood here and have an account and be covered if they've been donating blood.
Yes.
Am I understanding that
Yep.
correctly?
Yep, and the Red Cross has a whole entire biomedical division, and we host both public and sponsored blood drives. So we will work with, YMCA's, churches, to schedule community blood drives where they're just a host facility and the Red Cross comes in and we, collect blood, units of blood. One unit impacts 3 patients' lives. And then we have sponsored blood drives where it's more geared towards maybe the corporate sector where, we'll have a company that sponsors an employee blood drive, and we make it very easy for them. There's an app to sign up, and then they come as a company representative to give blood as well. There's always a critical need for blood. We're in a critical shortage right now. We had less than a 2-day supply of type O, so we always encourage those to donate. We have a biomedical committee that's focused just on encouraging sponsored blood drives and those to donate.
Okay, and I do have one more question if we have another minute. Not unrelated to blood. Insurance. Most people that are in a position in an emergency at 2 in the morning and they need to get shelter or they need additional living expense money for food or for clothing, whatever, to get them through that couple of days. Their insurance policies have to cover that from the time of the claim. Can you go back and bill the insurance company is there a mechanism, if you're giving $25,000 to Lebanon County for those incidents that probably, 3/4 would be covered by insurance for the additional living expense coverage, is there any way you can recoup that money is what I guess I'm asking?
If the Red Cross can recoup that
Yeah,
money?
yeah. Since you're giving it to somebody that has a coverage for that.
To the best of my knowledge, we don't.
It's probably something you
Yeah.
should consider.
Yeah, that's a
good question, though.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we've stayed really focused on being able to support people in the moment they need that
Sure.
support.
And
Right,
that's-
but I hear you. But on the retroactive side of
Yeah,
right,
when things
that's,
calm down and.
that's a good point, and we're
find out
looking
who
at
their
it.
insurance carrier is and bill them for the 3 days, because
Yep.
that coverage is
Yep.
part of every policy.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and like I said, to the best of my knowledge, we do not. We give the funds, we disperse them, and we kind of, we do casework on an ongoing basis to make sure their needs are met and they're connected with other community agencies, but we don't ask for any kind of reimbursement.
Anything else?
No, I would just say that I'm really glad that you're from Palmyra and
Go Cougars.
there's something to be said for that. I mean, I think the relationship with the community,
Yeah.
that
Kindred
does help
spirit.
that, so, and it's not that we can't get good people from somewhere else, but that's nice that you have that.
Bixler is my maiden name. If that doesn't say Lebanon County, I don't know. Not B-I-X, B-I-C-K-S-O is Bixler was my maiden name.
Okay.
So yeah, I was just saying, we date back to 1730 in Lebanon County,
Yeah, that's an
actually,
old
which
name
is,
here, yeah.
we don't leave, Bixlers don't leave.
No, Bob and I aren't from here, so we've been here for most of our lives, but we've been sometimes criticized as being county commissioners because we're not native to Lebanon County. It's an interesting
one of the
perspective that some people have.
That's one of the reasons. All right, well, thank you very much.
We appreciate
Sure.
it. Thank you for your time. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Do you want to leave your cards? with
Yeah,
the-
I have in a small gift. If there are any follow-up questions you have, like I said, I didn't really dive into our service, the armed forces. We have a great relationship with the Lebanon VA, and we provide almost $50,000 worth of tangible items to the VA each year. Actually, I just visited there yesterday to see how we can plug in additional volunteer opportunities. So I didn't really highlight that. If anybody has any follow-up questions about that piece of our business in Lebanon County, I would be happy to share it with you.
In a sentence or two, they track down individuals if there's an emergency, if they're serving overseas, or
We do emergency communications. So anyone that has some kind of emergency domestically, we do verify that message locally. We get that information overseas to command, and they can, command makes the call based on that verified message if the deployed member comes home. The Red Cross is the only agency that can do that. So they do, command does take, it's a lot of weight behind the Red Cross message if it comes through. And then additionally, we work in reunification, so restoring family links with refugees. Specifically after the Holocaust, we worked really heavily with that in reuniting families and letting them know that their family members arrived safely here in the United States. I just spoke at a church in Lancaster, and a woman raised her hand and said, "I just want you to know that my mother and I came over to the United States after World War II. My father was a Russian prisoner of war, and the Red Cross reconnected us." And I was like totally floored.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So just wonderful, heartwarming stories such as that. And then, like I said, we do work with homeless vets, other vet agencies, but specifically with the Lebanon VA to make sure we provide some tangible items that can help with homeless veterans and get them back on their feet.
Yeah. I had a personal experience many years ago with the Red Cross. I was in the Army at the Army Language School in California. My parents were in Newburgh, New York, and my mother lost a baby. And I was contacted at the Army camp by the Red Cross, and they made all kinds of travel arrangements and got me home to be with my family for a few days, and then and also they arranged for me to get back to California. But I couldn't be happier with the Red Cross being there for me at that time.
We are a humanitarian organization. We operate on 7 key fundamental principles, and anything that falls within there, there's a space for us to help and support. So never forget that. I'll hand you my card and a small gift if it's possible. It's just a first aid kit, but it's important to be safe. And then, like I said, any follow-up questions, feel free to call, email, anything you need.
I would think that the services that you provide at fire scenes, most people probably recognize you for that, because that's always very well publicized by the news media, the local radio.
And there's some very visible Red Cross logos on the scene as well.
The smoke detector installations have been really important for us too. I think it's interesting. I think you're right on the fire piece, and what we found is when we go to install smoke detectors, while in most communities we find they're critically needed, we do find there's a bit of a disconnect. When we knock on the door, and people see Red Cross sometimes are confused with a government agency and hesitant to allow us to come in and to evaluate, but we're not affiliated in that way.
Yeah.
We're simply coming in to check the home and try to improve the safety of
One of the interesting things about smoke detectors, that as a property owner that has apartments, it doesn't matter how many of them you put in, the next time you go in, they're either going to be disconnected or taken out. So we just had a move out in one of our apartments over in Mount Joy, and my property manager went in and she said there's not one smoke detector in that apartment.
Good. Well, they do take them with them.
No, they take them out.
They take them down because if it's too close to the kitchen, the fire,
Right.
It goes off.
Right.
It can be.
We also spend about 10 minutes with each family when we go in to put those in, to talk about home safety and about an evacuation plan in the event of a fire. So even beyond the smoke detectors, we're trying to help get that family prepared for disaster.
And I'll say, if anyone's watching, you know, we always have a need for volunteers. Lebanon County, if it's disaster relief, if it's supporting the VA hospital with some of their volunteer efforts, there's always a need for volunteering. So if you want to go to www.redcross.org/volunteer, there's a lot of opportunities available.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much. Jamie, thanks a lot for setting